This is Rogers TV.
Good evening and welcome. My name is Alan Lovett, and I'm a past president of the Brantford Brant Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber is pleased to be the community producer of this programming tonight in partnership with Rogers TV. This evening's debate is featuring the candidates running for Ward 1. Our city is facing a number of challenges. Bold action and strategic measures are required to ensure our long-term prosperity. It's an exciting time of the year. Kids are back in school, signs are popping up on lawns everywhere, and it's a chance for our citizens to have a say in our community. I congratulate all the candidates for their commitment to our community and allowing their names to stand forward for this election. Our candidates we have with us tonight are Tracy Bucci, Amrak Deol, Ramandeep Kokar, Mario Lucente, Michael Sullivan, Jan Vanderstelp, and Rick Weaver. Our panelists tonight are Dave Prang, Vice President of the Chamber of Commerce, Brantford Brant, and Charlene Nicholson, CEO, Chamber of Commerce, Brantford Brant. Tonight, our official timekeeper is Nancy Billard of the Chamber, and I'll remind everyone her time is final. Each candidate will be given 1 minute to make their opening remarks. The order of speaking tonight was determined by random draw. Our panelists, after the opening statements, will pose questions alternating back and forth, and each candidate will have 90 seconds to respond to the question. In the event that one of our candidates makes a specific and targeted personal statement towards any of the other candidates here tonight, that other candidate will be given 30 seconds to rebut that statement at the discretion of the moderator. The timekeeper will indicate to each of the candidates when there's 15 seconds remaining. When we've reached the maximum time, microphones will be turned off and there'll be no further speeches on that matter. In the case of a challenge, decision of the moderator is final. I would ask the candidates to adhere to the agreed upon format, exercise professional decorum throughout the debate. Thank you, and we'll begin with the opening remarks. And the first candidate to speak will be Rick Weaver. Rick.
Thank you, Alan. So I first wanted to thank the Chamber for putting the debates on, and Rogers for televising and later putting the debate on YouTube. So my name is Rick Weaver. I am a Ministry of Labor inspector, so an occupational health and safety inspector with the Ministry of Labor. I've been doing that job for the last 12 years, and I am your current city councillor, just finishing up my first term of council. And together we've completed a lot of projects, and we have a lot of exciting projects still to do. So I would ask you to please go to my website, rickpweaver.ca, to take a look at some of the resolutions and some of the good work that I've done for you. And I would ask for your support on October 22nd. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rick. Next up, Mario Lucente. Mario.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, members of Chamber and fellow candidates. My name is Mario Lucente. I'm proud to say that I've lived in the city of Brantford all my life, and I am a resident of Ward 1 for 28 years. I'm married, I have 3 children, and I have 4 amazing grandchildren. So I have served on various past boards. I was provincial appointee on Brant County Board of Health, and I held the position for vice chair and chair. In my tenure as chair, we had the privilege of, we were involved in the selection process of a new medical officer of health, and we also worked on reducing operating budgets. Active member of founding Daubney Evergreen Neighborhood Watch Association, and we have 117 members and counting. I work for a major automotive company. In my current job capacity as an industrial engineer, a major component of my job is to manage and facilitate efficiency and productivity challenges in a lean cost savings environment. I believe I have the same cost savings experience which is required.
Sorry, Mario, that's all the time we have for your opening statement. Amrak Deol. Amrak.
Hi, my name is Amrik Deol and live in Ward number 1, Brantford. I want to thank for the Chamber of Commerce. I am honest and hardworking person, and I am also the owner of the Speed Logistics Inc. As a father of 2 kids, 6 and 7, residents and community leader, I want to see my city and all neighbors growing and succeeding. I want to help create a city is made for its residents, create fair and affordable society, in which everyone can succeed. I believe this can be through strong voice and leadership at City Council, a voice that will advocate for programs and policies, promoting jobs, creating balance, and with keen eyes.
Thank you, Emmerich. Ramandeep Kokar. Ramandeep.
Thank you, Alan. I would like to start off by thanking tonight's organizers for making tonight's debate possible. Thank you to our moderator, Rogers Television, my fellow candidates, and the residents of Ward 1 who are present here today and also watching live. My name is Ramandeep Kokar. I am running to fill the position of Ward 1 councillor. My husband Suleiman and I have been married 19 years, and we have been blessed with 4 wonderful children. I was born and raised in Mississauga, Ontario. My husband and I, with our children, moved to Brantford in 2015. Brantford is a city filled with kind, loving, and generous individuals. This community has welcomed us with open arms, and we are proud to call Brantford home. As I have been knocking on doors and speaking with constituents, the concerns are very much the same. The challenges this community faces are not limited to, but include infrastructure and transportation. There is nothing more important to me than the voices of the residents to be heard and their needs met. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Tracy Bucci.
To accomplish positive change, I will listen to your concerns, be your voice, and take action. We should be living in a time of democracy, not dictatorship, a time of servant leaders and not self-serving dignitaries. Freedom of speech should always be encouraged and welcomed. I'm not satisfied that everyone's fundamental rights are being met and that the distressors of the public are being heard. I know that Brantford could be a much greater place to live in. Somewhere in the midst of everything, we have lost our compassion for others and stopped working together. I fear that we are on a downward spiral leading us towards collapse if we do not stop with the foolish spending. Brantford taxes are comparable to Toronto taxes. Tax dollars are being spent on new facilities instead of utilizing pre-existing lots and buildings. So many people are struggling. Drug overdoses are an everyday occurrence. Wages cannot keep up with the cost of living, and seniors are forced to work long past their retirement. We should be thinking of ways to give back to our community. If our basic needs are not being met.
Thank you, Tracy. That's all the time we have for your opening. Jan Vanderstel.
Thank you so much to all who made this evening possible. My name is Jan Vanderstel, and my wife and I were fortunate enough to find ourselves landed in Brantford. We built and own and operate Serenity Country Candles. We have 5 children. I was born in Ward 1, the old Ward 1, before it was split. I'm excited about this race. I'm excited about the possibilities. I'm happy to say that we have some serious challenges ahead of us in Ward 1. I'm concerned about a number of things. 22,000 doors that I reached during the last campaign, many of them in Ward 1, and the concerns are real, and I would like to get the chance to address them. So thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Jan. And lastly, Michael Sullivan.
My name is Michael Sullivan. I'd like to thank the Chambers for putting this all together for us. I'd like to thank the residents of Ward 1 for giving us the opportunity to be here before them. I'm here to listen. I'm here to advocate on your behalf. I have a wife. I have 3 boys. They all go to high school here in Brantford. I've been here for just over a decade now. Brantford has become my home, but short of that, my whole childhood was basically spent here in Brantford as I had extended family here. I feel a real desire to serve the people here, and I feel that the incumbents have done a great job, and I think as a community, you deserve to have a great job taken to the next level and done even better. I want to take any type of efficiencies in funding and use it accordingly and make it so that your tax dollars are working for you and not against you. Thank you.
Thank you to all the candidates. It's now time where we're going to get into the questions. These questions will be posed again alternately between David Prang and Charlene Nicholson. These questions have been comprised through our Chamber Advocacy Committee, our board, and our membership at large. The annual questionnaires that our membership has completed have largely aided to these topics, which we feel are extremely important to our community. First off, we will be going to David Prang, and first candidate to speak will be Mary Licente. David.
Thank you, Alan.
If successful, you will represent a specific ward within the city of Brantford. While some issues are common to all wards and the community at large, there are issues and challenges specific to each ward in the city. What are the top priorities for your ward, and how will you advocate for those issues?
Thank you. The top priorities in Ward 1 in particular, first and foremost, is the BSAR must be completed. Traffic congestion is gone out of control, and we need to take a serious hard look at getting that moving right away. First and foremost, I'd like to serve the constituents of Ward 1 and all other wards of interaction or association. We need to concentrate on the Ward 1 constituents before we move on to other wards. I'd like to listen to the voice of constituents to be representative voice of council. Tax dollars must be continuously scrutinized through the capital budget. Stop needless unbudgeted spending, and reserve funds are not fund money. It's still our tax dollars, especially if it's not supported by the taxpayers. Ward 1 is a diamond in the rough, and we need to protect and preserve our river and our natural trails, wildlife, diverse geographical boundaries south of the Grand River. We should all strive to make Ward 1 the best place to raise your family for years to come. It's a great place to live. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Next, Amrit Deal. Amrit.
The city of Brantford needs to develop a new economic development strategic plan. This plan outlines priorities that will help to strong and continue our local economy. The economic development strategy plan provides a focus point to guide community to attract new investment and rely positive growth that will result to increase prosperity of residents. We need to encourage people to come over to Brantford so it can help to grow Brantford.
Thank you, Amrit. Next, we've got Ramadeep Gokar. Ramadeep.
Thank you, David, for the question. The number one priority is the BSAR, also known as the Brantford Southern Access Route. For the community to get in and out of the city is a real struggle. There's a lot of waste of time there as well. So saving on that, getting the community home in a timely manner is important. That means more time spent with your families at home. I would 100% support that project there. The current plans for the BSAR are almost 20 years old, and they would not work for the community today. So there are some things that need to be changed. There, plans that need to be reworked, and unfortunately, it is something that has to start from scratch. And it would be my top priority to make sure that that project is in place should I be elected as your Ward 1 councillor. Taxes are another concern that this ward has. There are high property taxes, which cause seniors and younger families to be not able to afford their homes. I believe that each individual should be able to have a home and live comfortably as well. And as well as a sports complex as well, which has been a great...
Thank you, Ramadeep. Next, we've got Tracy Bucci. Tracy.
I know that there's been a lot of discussion regarding the Brantford Southern Access Road. The cost, though, is pretty steep. We're looking at $89.4 million. That's where it starts, and it goes all the way up to $127.8 million. That doesn't include the operating fees per year and a lot of other hidden fees. So I do think that it needs to be seriously looked at. And in doing that, we need to consider everyone's needs, the natural environment, Six Nations of the Grand River. The Grand River is very important to me. For the past 18 years, I've been actively cleaning up the Grand River. So the environment and the needs of Ward 1 are very important. Taxes is a huge issue, not just for Ward 1, but for everyone in the city of Brantford. They're ridiculous. So those are the things that I find are very concerning. Going door to door and meeting seniors who are working long past their retirement because the cost of living and the...
Thank you, Tracy. I've got to cut you off there. Next, we've got Jan Vanderstelt. Jan.
Thank you. My priorities, quite simply put, are Ward 1's priorities, and really nothing has changed that much. On my last term on council, we were talking about two-way traffic, or the possibility of two-way traffic in the downtown core. At that time, it made no sense. It still makes no sense now. We're going to break down the bridge at some point and rebuild it, Lorne Bridge. It's already a weight restriction on the Lorne Bridge. We've heard a lot of talk for decades. I can't believe I have to say that out loud. Talking for decades about a road. The road will eventually not be an artery. It will be a collector, and nothing much more than a collector. And you'll get stopped at the bottleneck at Gretzky and Morton, where Costco's coming in. I do not believe that the BSAR is our only option. I believe there are other options. There are other routes out of town. If it were up to me, and based on what I heard 4 years ago and 8 years ago, if it were up to me, I would look at the other options of moving people out of the city, not through the city. What I'd like to see is zero collisions or accidents between cars, trucks, and pedestrians. I would like to see safer, but I would say, well, not faster, safer, but ergonomically correct egress out of town on 5 different routes if that's possible. And I'm going to shoot for that if I can.
Thank you, Jed. Excuse me. And Michael Sullivan.
Well, as everyone else has also mentioned, I've also have my own concerns about the BSAR as well. I think phase 2, as everybody knows it, is kind of stuck in limbo. It's a very controversial area. I was at the last meeting for the BSAR, and that section actually looks like it's going to be nothing more than a communal road now. So we need to focus on getting West Brant a highway access, and I'm in total favor of doing an Oak Park Road extension to West Brant in order to alleviate the traffic out the other direction and alleviate the traffic out of the downtown core. I'm also in favor of taking a look at the way our taxes are structured and basically look at a municipal, a property tax to municipal services equality. And essentially what that is you pay for you pay taxes for the services you receive. I'd also like to see our community safer. I know in the last little while there's been a lot of break-in and enters going on in the Ward 1 area, and I'd like to do what's necessary, put in the necessary recommendations to the police force and the police association, that is, and see that they look into those things, and more importantly, encourage the residents to actually report things as they happen, because a lot of people figure, well, somebody tried to break in, they didn't report it, and that goes right against the statistics that the police utilize for putting out their patrols. So if something does happen, we need to encourage our residents to actually report it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And lastly on this question, Rick Weaver.
Thank you for the question, David. I'm going to continue to work on the Transportation Master Plan. I was disheartened at the start of this term to find out that we really haven't gone anywhere with Brent Service Access routes previously, so we really had to start from scratch. So we asked staff to do a feasibility study. The feasibility study has been completed, and now we will await 2019 for the Transportation Master Plan report to come to council. In the meantime, I think it's very important that we look for short-term solutions to the traffic issues. We have some suggestions. We heard some great ones at the previously mentioned ward meeting that myself and my ward mate ran, and I think that's very important to the Ward 1 constituents. I also want to continue to work on the project for the Southwest Sports and Community Center. So this was a project that, by thinking out of the box, my ward mate and I were able to actually get fully funded. And that's going to be a substantial project for our community. And I'm looking forward to having that project add to the reason why people want to live and play in Ward 1. I also am committed this term, if reelected, to go on the Social Service Committee and deal with our affordable housing concerns. Our housing concerns are It's 630 people are on the waiting list, and to me, that's just unacceptable.
Thank you, Rick. Our next question will be posed by Charlene Nicholson, and Amric Deal will start us off. Charlene.
Thank you. It's interesting that many of you mentioned transportation in the BSAR because the business community has identified transportation as one of the key issues affecting their businesses. Contrary to what most people think, it does not just affect the people in Wards 1 and Wards 5. It affects the entire community in the way we can move people, goods, and services. The lack of progress is also negatively impacting other projects such as the Mohawk Lake Initiative. So our question is, the project has been under discussion and has been planned for decades. Which of the current routes currently being proposed do you favor? And will you commit to voting for a specific route by December 2020, which is halfway through the next term of council?
Amric, if you can start us off there.
Yes, I will.
Thanks, Amric. We'll move on to Ramandeep. Ramandeep Kokar.
Thank you for the question, Charlene. The BSAR is definitely a long overdue project. I would support the Highway 403 loop through Wayne Gretzky. And yes, I would also be in favor of and support whatever decision would be made as long as the voices of Ward 1 constituents is heard. And that would be my major concern there, is as long as their voices are heard, and that's who we represent, and I would support anything that they would want us to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Tracy Bucci next. Tracy.
Thank you. I was also there at the public meeting for the alternative ways to access the highway. To me, the costs are just outrageous, and I don't know how it's all being paid for. I do think that some new ideas need to come into play. And we also, again, need to consider everyone's wishes, the natural environment, and Six Nations of the Grand River. And making these decisions, they need to be open, transparent, and everybody needs to agree. I think that there needs to be some more discussion, and I just think that it's ridiculous. 127.8 million and 197 per year, and who knows about the other unforeseen costs. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Jan Vanderstel. Jan.
Of the options available, I like the way you phrased the question, actually, because what we do in the city of Brantford, what we have a tendency to do is and dictate what we will do with our own transportation needs and with our own just about everything outside of the few shared services that we do have. It's frustrating because our planning process, if we're thinking 25 years into the future, does not just involve the city of Brantford. It involves the county of Brant. It involves Six Nations and New Credit. And if we don't include them in the conversation in the very beginning, we will not have a clear vision for how to properly move traffic. Not only just east-west, which is a 5-minute run through town, but north-south. You can't do it in under 40, I would say, depending on whether or not you get up at 4 o'clock in the morning. My problem is I don't want to attach myself to any one particular plan without talking with all the shareholders. An open, honest, simple dialogue of how do we safely move our people to and from work and to where they shop and to where they get their hair cut. If we don't start that conversation, and if we don't continue that conversation, I'm happy that the mayoral candidates are listening, because I can't take any other approach on this issue.
Thank you, Jan. Michael Sullivan.
Thank you. Once again, I'm in total favor of the Oak Park Road extension. The reason for it is when I was at that ward meeting, the cost factors associated with the Phase 2 section and then the upgrade to Wayne Gretzky once that would be complete, not to mention the realistic factor of how controversial the land is down there, and more land would have to be acquired to actually go through with anything. At least with an Oak Park extension, it can actually, the ball can start rolling a lot quicker. Yes, we do have to involve the County of Brant and Six Nations. And yes, there has to be a worked upon agreement. However, that seems like a more viable option. It's definitely more cost efficient, and the results can be handled a lot quicker. On top of that, most of the people that have moved into the newer sections of West Brant work out of town. So their dire need is to get to the highway. So a lot of people have said, well, they're going west. Well, they're going west about 5 minutes, and then they're on the highway. It's more feasible for them. They're out of town quicker. You would also be diverting traffic to the new Costco area should it happen, and Linden Park Mall a lot quicker from West Brant. And at the same token, you lighten the traffic load that's going through the downtown, which is also affecting our road conditions, our street safety for pedestrians and for cyclists. And it just puts a burden on everybody in the downtown core. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rick Weaver.
Thanks, Charlene, for the question. This is a large problem, and it's been a large problem for our city. So I think one of the things that I brought forward this last term is this isn't a Ward 1 perk. This isn't something just for Ward 1. Charlene, you had said that it's a problem economically for the city. Brant Ave, Clarence Street get boggled down during rush hours because of the lack of leadership we had 20 years ago in the city when we should have made these decisions to move forward our transportation plan. One of the first things that I actually did when I became a city councilor was I met with the executive director of Native Housing. Native Housing has a housing need, and I suggested that for some of the land on the Glebe-lands that we could put some infrastructure in that area so they could have some much needed affordable housing. And that idea was actually received very well, but unfortunately soon after that, the executive director changed, and our relationship broke down a little bit with Six Nations. So, because they are definitely a partner in whatever we decide to do, as is the county. We are very focused just regionally in our city, and we need to look at regional roads, not just city roads, to fix our transportation problems.
Thank you, Rick. And lastly, on this topic, we'll have Mario Lucente. Mario.
Thank you, Charlene. It's time council gets serious about this topic. It's over 50 years of back and forth bantering. West Brant development and growth is causing major congestion. Many residents commute to the 403, and it takes a commuter anywhere from an hour there and back a day in their car rather than be with their family. 50 years ago, someone had a vision, and that vision was the BSAR, and over 60 families lost their homes on Eagle Ave, Greenwich, Rose Ave, and Glanville. These vacant lots still sit empty today, 50 years later. A true testament of the lack of planning for Brantford. Someone lost the vision. It's time to get serious, and I think first about the residents of Brantford. There are 9,000 people in Winfield, another 9,000 in the next 3 or 4 years. It's creating traffic havoc. We can't continually be reactive and to be a predicted problem that everyone can see, but rather we must be proactive in our future planning and our budgetary processes. To ignore the future will result in catastrophic, unplanned budget increases, with no doubt will end up in raised tax dollars for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Before we move on to the next question from David Prang, I'd ask all the candidates to do their best to answer the specific questions as best as possible. Our questions have some pointed topics that we'd like answered, and to the best of your ability, if you could stick to answering the questions, we'd appreciate it. First up to answer David's question will be Ramandeep. David?
Thank you, Alan. The city's operating and capital budgets combined total more than $200 million. A private sector company with a similar budget would require its decision makers to have the skills and expertise necessary to make sound fiscal decisions. What past professional experience do you have that will best enable you to make sound decisions based on business principles that will benefit your constituents and the community at large?
Thank you for the question, David. I work at Shoppers Drug Mart. I am an assistant front store manager, and to know how to run a business is something that is part of the job. And cost savings is a major concern for us. Expenditure is as well. I come from a background of commerce. I have a Bachelor of Commerce degree from the University of Toronto. So I do have previous knowledge on how expenditures work, how to cut costs where they need to be cut so that they are used, so the finances are used in an area that would benefit not only us as Ward 1, but in general for the city as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy Bucci.
As an active, involved 18-year organizer of the Grand River Environmental Group cleanup efforts throughout the city of Brantford. It's a volunteer group, and we don't really have a lot of money. So the little bit of money that we do get, we have to make it work for us. We have to make it stretch, and we make sure that those core items and needs are met. Also, I manage Bucci Law Office, so there's also some other business experience as well. So I do have some background when it comes to managing money, overhead costs, priorities, the basic needs of a business, and what it takes to keep going, especially with the Grand River Environmental Group being a volunteer group and going on 18 years with hardly any money. I mean, we're still doing a great job and very, very successful at it. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Jan Vanderstel.
Thank you. I'll try to be more specific. When we built our business, my wife and I, first of all, it helps to be Dutch when you're managing money. And we do it quite well. You must be flexible. You must watch the bottom line. You must watch where your best bang for your buck is. You must work smarter, not harder. It's just a simple fact in business. If you do not do these things, if you're not aware of what your income is, what your outflow is, you will fail in business. I have never worked in the construction industry for a company that has failed, that has gone broke. I never have. Currently, I'm working for one in the city of Brantford, and I manage a number of different things for them. Among the things is, again, how to work smarter. I actually, in this day and age, I have to still train people on how to save money by how they do what they do. How to save money by purchasing correctly. That's not a difficult thing to do in the city of Brantford. The city of Brantford would go broke if it was trying to make a profit. It just can't do it. And one case in particular has bothered me for years, and that is when we call for location services. We'll call 3 or 4 times for location services to come to the same job that we haven't yet started. Things like that drive me insane, and I'll stop it.
Thank you, Jan. Michael Sullivan.
Thank you. I worked as an operations manager for a health industry that worked for Hamilton Health Sciences and St. Joseph's Healthcare. I was responsible for doing budgeting, forecasting, and project planning within the actual transportation of the hospitals themselves. It was a very delicate situation there because what you do is you'd have your sterilization trucks, you'd also have your food trucks, and a lot of this is coordinated through each other, and each has their own budget. And you can borrow from different budgets, but bottom line is you have a monthly budget that you must stay within. And if you go over that, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Through that job, I was actually promoted 4 times in a 3-year window, and actually moved on and took a computerized accounting course as well on top of that, and stretched out into business English so I would know the languages, so that nothing could be presented before me with me not understanding what was actually being presented before me. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rick Weaver.
Thank you, David, for the question. And I'll have to be honest, as soon as you get elected, you get thrown into city budgets. and I really was lost, to be perfectly honest with you, operational and capital dollars. So the first year I sat back and I learned. I made a lot of notes. Second year, I started taking part, asking questions, making some small cuts. By the third year, the only person that made more cuts in that year than me was my conservative friend, Greg Martin. And then on the fourth year, I took it upon myself to become the chair of the Finance Committee. I changed the way the city does its budgets and estimates process and really made it easier and more transparent for the people viewing the budget process to have cuts driven by council rather than us having a process driven by our city staff. So I will continue that good work, and I'm looking forward to getting into this year's budget if elected. And by overseeing the financial committee and the budget committee, the 2018 operating budget was $148,085,022. So I have the experience to continue to move the city forward and to continue to find those cuts that I think are needed to make sure that we continue to make Brantford affordable.
Thank you, Rick. Mario Lucente.
Thank you, David. I'm an industrial engineering for a major auto manufacturer in Ingersoll, Ontario. I am what's called the lead industrial engineer for the plant of about 3,000 people. We are tasked every year from our parent company to find a 3% efficiency productivity gain. It's non-negotiable. We can't say we can't find it. In the end, we do find it. We do it every year, and we find it any possible way we can through lean initiatives, looking for ways of finding cost-saving tasks within the corporation. There must be a proactive measure to maintain a zero tax increase to the taxpayers while maintaining the same level of service through those lean efficiencies. There's no reason why we can't strive to get to some type of close number to zero, as well as not losing the services that are continually challenged in terms of cutting services within the departments. In the private sector, it's unacceptable to meet those projected targets. To fail to meet zero increase is not an option. It creates a competitive disadvantage which leads companies to closures. So lean efficiency practices must be a mandatory requirement for all departments. In the last 2 years, City Hall has added 54.
Sorry, Michael, I'm going to have to cut you off there. Thank you for the answer. We'll move to Amrik Dill. Amrik.
Thank you. I'm a realtor and as a owner of a small business, as a trucking company. So I'm not in the favor of increased taxes. So to keep the reasonable regulation and minimal tax in the place to enable creative businessmen to ability to start their own business to grow them here. There is great locate talent coming to and through the university. It would be great if some of our local talent could develop business here, so it will be more good for our city.
Thank you, Amrik. And our next question will be posed by Charlene Nicholson. Charlene?
Thank you. The legalization of cannabis may present economic development opportunities for those communities who choose to allow physical outlets within their boundaries. The province has stated they are going to allow municipalities a one-time only opt-in or opt-out of retail outlets. Will you vote to opt-in or opt-out, and why?
And Tracy Bushi, you can lead us off, please.
I did attend that meeting with information on cannabis and what it had to offer. And I didn't get a lot of information from that session. I believe, were just offering marijuana to smoke, I believe. and they weren't offering any type of oils or medicinal type of marijuana. So I need a little bit more information than what I received at that forum. So I'm just gonna leave that. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Jan Vanderstelt next, if you would, please.
Thank you. I would opt in immediately. It will be a market-driven supply and demand chain. I can't stand this up myself, but I do know people who benefit greatly from the medicinal components. And some of them are quite actually close to me. My mom, she's dealing with a lot of pain. And I know that as the demand changes and evolves, it's good that we would have a very clear access and a very identified access to things like effects, dosages, to very clearly educate people who are unsure about their choices. I mean, the choices that you usually have when you walk into the LCBO are very clear. The benefits, if you can call it, or the detrimental parts of alcohol, we've experienced that for far too long. We have yet to develop the public's reaction to the use of marijuana. I know that it will evolve. I know that people will learn more about the product and use it in a more hopefully use it in a more helpful manner. I would opt in.
Thank you, Jan. Michael Sullivan?
Oh, like Jan, I probably would opt in as well for the medicinal purposes. However, I would definitely want to have some more studying done into it on the regards of how it's going to be sold. I know if we look to our neighbors down below the border, a lot of their communities that have it in are having a lot of serious issues right now. So there would definitely have to be some tight security measures put in to ensure that our young ones were not gaining access to this stuff. I know they're talking about private retail, and I think about private cigarettes being sold, and children are still getting them into their hands. So I'd want to see how we could make sure that that wouldn't happen. But the biggest factor for me on my decision would be the municipal purposes. Thank you.
Rick Weaver, please.
Thank you, Charlene, for the question. I would definitely opt in. I think not opting in will inherently bring in the black market and crime, and that in itself actually frightens me more than the legalization of marijuana. We need to make sure that criminals don't get a foothold in the sale of marijuana and cannabis. So right now the province's plan is to have provincial farms to distribute to private individuals. And I think by having private industry involved, I think that'll actually also drive innovation. So you won't actually necessarily have people in apartment buildings smoking marijuana, which is why I don't want to live in an apartment, because I don't want to live beside someone that smokes that marijuana. But there'll be opportunities for edibles and whatnot through private enterprise. And I think one of the strong points we need to make sure that we're following is education. We need to make sure that children are educated, adults are educated. We need to do everything in our power to keep it away from children. And I think legalizing it actually will assist with that. And I think by having private stores, that's going to be a cost to the municipality. So by bylawing these stores, I think we'll make some money to be able to afford our bylaws. Thank you.
Thanks, Rick. Next, we've got Mario Licente. Mario.
Thank you. I would definitely opt in for the simple reason that I don't want to hinder any type of medicinal purposes if that's the case. There's a lot of people that are dependent on it for that purpose, and it's proven time and time again to be very effective for them. Since the government has already legislated the legalization of it, focus should be more about how the city should improve and prepare regulation and address implementation. Law enforcement protecting our youth from the exposure. It's planned to be regulated through dispensing outlets, which supports a more effective approach to regulating it. There must be a balance of use, and collectively as a community, it is incumbent on the City Council to mandate what's best for Brantford within the limitations of the statutory regulations. Council must always support the needs and wants of this community regarding this controversial legislation and come up with the best logical solution for the City of Brantford. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Emmerich Deal.
The increase in drug problem a couple of years back was really black eyes for the Ward 1. And Neighborhood Watch and the police have done a very good job cleaning this up, and we need to awareness in the kids and our youth to avoid these type of drugs.
Thank you, Emmerich. Ramandeep Kokar.
Thank you for the question. This is a difficult topic. Medicinal use is one thing, but recreational use is something completely different. Education is mandatory, especially in younger children and youth as well, who could be vulnerable to misuse, of marijuana. I would opt in for the purpose of for those who do need it on a medicinal purpose use, which is important for them. Then again, the municipality needs to have regulation in place for those that are not following the rules and not complying with legislation, that they should be held accountable for their actions. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Next question, we'll back over to David Prang, and first to answer of the candidates will be Jan Vanderstelt. Please, David.
Thank you, Alan. The city's economic development portfolio is diverse and includes more than the traditional commercial and industrial sectors. How do you see the arts, culture, heritage, and tourism sectors as economic drivers? And how would you work with our neighbors on Six Nations and in the county to capitalize on the economic opportunities of these sectors?
Arts and culture, in so many of its forms, is a proven economic driver. I was on the Brant Studio Tour for a number of times. I started with a number of other people at the Homedale Art Crawl the last 2 years. I'm a sculptor. I know that this is, I'm going to say it, I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it, this is a sport town. I am an artist living in a sport town. And it is frustrating, it has been frustrating, but I will continue to support the arts, and I will incorporate the County of Brant and Six Nations New Credit, as I always have, being an active artist, to present and support all of the opportunities for art in the city of Brantford. There has been a surprising upswell in support for the arts in the last, I would say, 10 years. I'm happy to see it. The arts needs champions. The arts needs funding. It needs a space. It needs a room. It needs a place. It needs something that it hasn't had before to accommodate all the amazing artists that are in the city and the county and Six Nations. We can take the lead on that.
Thank you, Jan. Michael Sullivan.
Thank you. Like anything else that's going on in the city, I would definitely be in favor of helping and supporting the arts and cultures. They're a way of life. They're more than just an art or a sport. This is, in a lot of places, this is the way they live. This is the way they get to express themselves. This is the way they get to show themselves as human beings. And in that light, I think that they should be supported in everything they do. I believe that we should incorporate the County of Brant and Six Nations and the Mississauga, the new credits, and see how we can formulate this and maybe even get some type of an event going. I know the arts have been growing every summer. We've been seeing more and more going on down at Harmony Square. We've been seeing going on in the park with the music in the parks, and out in Shellard, they had them out there at Donegal Park out there. The art is a way of somebody being allowed to express themselves, and to not support that would be hindering the residents from being allowed to be themselves. And I don't think that's right. And I think as a city and as a community, we need to stand behind that. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Over to Rick Weaver.
Thank you, David, for the question. So arts and culture is a very important aspect economically to the city. When you look at what we have in place now, so Harmony Square So in 2017, Harmony Square put on 120 free events for the families in Brantford. And this year, just in July and August, they've already booked 102. So we're going in the right direction. More people are starting to get involved. And the question then is, how does that translate, having free events, into an economic driver? So when you take a look at the per capita spending in Ontario, so the average family will spend $97 on entertainment in a month. In Brantford, it is $60.58. So I think what we really need to do is, again, stop looking at Brantford. We need to look regionally. Brant County puts on some great events, and so does Six Nations. I think we need to really strive to have a process where we're getting together, we're marketing our area together, and we're promoting each other. And I don't think we do that now, and I think we need to do a much better job of that. And that is something that I will be taking on if I get reelected.
Thank you, Rick. Mario Lucente.
I believe with our arts and culture, I believe we're missing the boat on a huge economical drawing card. There's Brantford in itself is rich with history of culture and heritage that take, for instance, our museum, which is a very interesting place to go visit, but a lot of people don't visit it, and we're not promoting it to the point of really showing off the gem of the city that we have. Including in that would be the Six Nations and the New Credit. A ton of cultural history over the years with the Pauline Johnson home, and a lot of the history in Brantford goes back to Six Nations. And again, we just touch on it, and we're missing the boat on capitalizing on that cultural and arts display that we could be taking on. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Emmerich Dill. Emmerich. Thank you, Emmerich. We'll move on to Ramandeep Kokar. Ramandeep.
Thank you, David, for the question. I would be in 100% support of the arts and culture, especially when it comes to joining together with our counterparts, and which would help us to promote each other, to help our counties and our cities shine as wonderful work is brought forward. This arts and culture is an area where individuals shine and in their strengths. I don't have that type of strength when it comes to arts at all, but I do commend those that do for the work that they put out, and we should and always support them and help those individuals shine to the best of their ability. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Over to Tracy Bucci, please.
Yes, I would definitely support the arts and culture, and collaborating with Six Nations and Brant County can only expand and benefit everyone in the community. I think it's great to express and learn and connect with each other. I've always loved the arts. My son, who's 28, is an art teacher in Toronto, and that's because it's always been encouraged to, go with your passion, and that's what he's done. And definitely support the arts and culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. We'll move on to a question from Charlene Nicholson. And first to answer will be Michael Sullivan. Charlene.
We think that the decisions made by municipal governments affect our day-to-day lives actually more than any other level of government. Municipalities fund our infrastructure, provide our core services, our roads, and our sewers. Our community has experienced a number of incidents in the last 12 months that have strained or outright compromised some of our key infrastructure. We're currently struggling with the lack of capacity to service growth, both new and infill. The question is, how will you ensure that infrastructure is a priority for the next term of council so that we have the necessary core services that are critical to our community's continued success?
Thank you. Well, first and foremost, I think we need to start focusing on what Brantford needs as opposed to what Brantford wants. The wants out there, they're always going to be wants, but our infrastructure is imperative. We have the sewage pump issue that arose. We have the flood that arose. These are issues that we've got to take the preliminary steps to make sure that we can ensure that these things don't happen again. Now, we know that we have a sewage pump issue, so we need to make sure that we do what's necessary to get at least another pump up and running. Now, I know they have a Band-Aid situation up, but we need to get an actual core fix in place so that we don't have people having sewage backing up into their basements. The flood is another issue. That bridge is still sitting there. I know Environment Canada is actually calling for a very similar winter to what we had this year. And as a result, we could be looking at that flood happening again if everything is left unchanged. If I was on council, I would ensure that we take the necessary steps to remove all possible, blockages, I would say. Like that bridge, I believe it's off its mounts. I'm not sure what the engineer's reports have come back on that yet, but we need to make sure that we can make it so that flood does never happen again and we have that type of evacuation. Other than that, we need to take a look at our roads. The roads that are out there that need to be done, need to be dealt with, we need to correct them as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rick Weaver.
Thank you, Charlene, for the question. So I think one of the things the city could do immediately is the city has a committee, economic development committee, and I have friends on that committee, and we chat quite often. And I think that committee needs to have a higher status within the city. I think that'll help us drive economically, and it will help us find out about these issues sooner. So I found out about the empty pump house by my friends on economic development before we heard from staff. That's wrong. That should not happen. So I think by allowing economic development to just present to council more often and have a better dialogue with council, I think that'll help us drive to make some better decisions. The people that are on that committee are excellent. We're very happy with the work that they've done for us. And I really can't understate the fact that we need to pay attention to our infrastructure, and we need to make sure that it's dealt with right away, not keep putting Band-Aid solutions in. It's without a doubt one of the most important decisions we need to make as a council to make sure our infrastructure is properly running.
Thank you, Rick. And as the chair of the Economic Development Committee, I appreciate your answer. Next, we'll move on to Mario Licente. Mario.
I believe the infrastructure is in dire need of some direction, some planning, some long-term planning direction. Perfect example of that is the flood that we had a year ago. I think there was a little bit of miscommunication on that flood with the log jams that weren't installed properly and in a timely fashion. There seems to be some misdirection there. There seems to be misdirection on the pumping stations. The department went to council almost immediately looking for $500,000 to get immediate action on the pumping station. That money was not budgeted. That was not in the 2018 capital budget. It was more or less asked for that money immediately. I think we need to do some serious long-term planning for infrastructure so that we don't burden the taxpayers with additional costs that are unforeseen, and eventually that additional cost comes back to the tax. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to Emric Deal. Emric.
Thank you. Only the public infrastructure like road where is the critical needed and not to be used to take someone's property away from economic development. We need to pay attention on infrastructure for our future of the Brantford. We need focus on the long-term infrastructure. Thank you.
Thank you, Emric. Ramandeep Kokar, please. Ramandeep.
Thank you for the question. Infrastructure needs are critical, and they do need to be corrected. The flood was absolutely devastating, especially for those who live in that in the downtown core and in the area there. And the permanent repairs need to be done and put in place so this city does not face such a devastation again. I would join the Economic Development Committee and be a part of that process. Resurfacing in general in the city does need to be put into place, and it is required and long overdue. So Band-Aid solutions are not the answer. We need to work on a permanent fix and get that into place as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Tracy?
So my understanding is that it was known a long time ago about the sewage issues. 2 sewage pumps, the pumping stations are at full capacity, or beyond that. It's kind of ridiculous that it wasn't taken care of a long time ago. Why now, all of a sudden, when it's an emergency, we're going to do something about it, if we even have done anything at all, really? It sounds to me that it needs immediate attention, and I don't really know if that's happening. I think it's really important, again, for transparency and accountability. I don't think that's happening either. I think that in order to flourish, we need to work from the ground up, and that means the roads, the infrastructure, everything, the sewers, all of those. The basic needs need to be taken care of first, and then we grow upward from there. Instead of jumping to the next big $1 million project, why don't we take care of our needs, our basic needs first? Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Moving on to Jan Vanderstelp. Jan.
Thank you. I think when I left council, there was an estimate of $138 million deficit in infrastructure upgrades that needed to be done. Everything from clay pipes to broken valves under some of our older streets. And regardless where the fire shows up, we always seem to come up with the money to put the fire out and fix the problem and carry on from there. Although the initial presenting problem seems to be huge and insurmountable, we find the source for the problem, and we put a Band-Aid on it until we find a way to deal with it properly. What I haven't seen yet is a management system by which we know exactly what will fail next based on the last 50 years. We can build that. There are plenty of competent people on staff who can fairly well predict what will happen next. If we look at the 100-year storm that comes every 3 years now, we have some work to do with the rest of the municipalities on the watershed. We need to know that we have a concrete plan in place to break up ice before the monster wakes up again in the spring. We'll be in trouble if we don't. I'm talking about planning again with more people on a regional scale that will help us become prepared and better prepared for the next steps we need to take.
Thank you, Jan. We'll move on to our next question, which will be posed by David Brang. David.
Thank you, Alan. As Alan mentioned at the start of tonight's discussion, the Chamber surveys its members on an annual basis at a minimum, and quite frequently on a much more regular basis on specific topics. In a recent survey of Chamber member businesses, 69% of respondents said they feel only somewhat or not at all supported by the municipality in the operation of their businesses. What changes would you propose to create a more business-friendly and cooperative environment?
Thank you. And first question will go to Rick Weaver. Rick.
Thank you for the question, David. Yeah, that's unfortunate that our business folks feel that way. So I think first and foremost, in order for the city to address those issues, I think they really need to be part of the discussion that the Chamber is having with your members. I think by having some members attend those meetings and to be asked hard questions and to find out what we can do to support the local businesses. So I know that there is a separation between residential, commercial, and industrial taxes, and I know we are working as a council to try to level that out for fairness. And I think that would be one of the first things that would definitely get some approval of your members, and it is something that we've been working on. But really, I think we need to be transparent, and we need to have those discussions openly with those types of committees, or in this case, the chamber.
Thank you, Rick. Move on to Mario Lucente. Mario.
Thank you. Part of my campaign strategy for Ward 1 has been very loud and clear in the community, and what I'm doing is I'm visiting all the local businesses, the smaller ma and pa type of businesses, and I'm visiting with them and I'm promoting them on my websites, basically to give them an upper edge to promote their business in terms of what they do and what they are. In my discussions with a lot of these smaller local businesses, there seems to be a common theme that they're the forgotten little business in Ward 1, and they're the forgotten business with the city, and the city seems to be ignoring them and taking more preference into the larger retail type of plazas and locations. And so part of my objective is to get out there and try and promote as much as I can to local business within Ward 1. And I'm encouraging everybody in Ward 1 to frequent with these businesses and support them. And so far, it's been overwhelming success in terms of response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Amric Deal next. Amric.
Thank you. We need to promote the local businesses. So because local businesses is the backbone of our economy, so we need to promote in between residential small businesses, so it can help to grow our city. So we also need to encourage the people to move over to Brantford, so it's very good for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Amric. Ramadeep Koka. Ramadeep.
Thank you for the question, David. It is unfortunate. I agree with my fellow candidate, Mr. Weaver here, that businesses feel that way. In order for them to prosper and to grow, it should be something that the city supports them with. The tax rates, for one, for businesses need to be fair. They need to, we don't want to tax them to a point where it makes it difficult for them to continue to survive. So we need to re-examine the tax fairness policies as well, make it easier for them to make things work. And, business brings opportunity. It brings jobs to our communities, and which is important for us to help our community grow and to be able to make a living for themselves as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramadeep. Tracy Bucci.
Regarding the businesses, would encourage working together with our local businesses, encourage Ward 1 to shop local, help to promote each other, and also look at the taxes and making that fair as well. So that's what I would do. Just try to work together with each other as much as possible, and to help promote each other, and just go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Jan Vandersel.
Thank you. Outside of the fact that market-driven forces will do what they will, a case in point, the Colburn Street redevelopment or revitalization task force that we worked through. It's frustrating to say that we can't, as a municipality, necessarily affect how well businesses do. That is frustrating. But what's encouraging is to know that there is an open dialogue. If there are things that we can do to create better access or legislate better access, for example, accessibility, a simple thing like accessibility. There are an awful lot of existing businesses that are having a difficult time making businesses more accessible for people who have alternate needs. I think that we could begin an entire dialogue with the Accessibility Committee, with the Chamber of Commerce. We have an aging population. That's not going to stop. People will have more needs as time goes by. I think it's worth an open-ended dialogue of how can we best work together, not only to reduce some of the taxes, if that's possible, but also work together with the pockets of constituents in a certain area to make getting what they need much easier on a day-to-day basis, regardless of where that may happen in the city, specifically in the.
Thank you, Jan. Going to cut you off there. And lastly, we'll move to Michael Sullivan on the issue. Michael.
Well, I think one of the things we can look at doing, obviously, is diverting traffic that's cutting through, because that's taking away, that's making people frustrated. A lot of times people don't go into certain areas because they know all the vehicles are going to be there, even though they really want to go to this particular establishment and enjoy whatever service it is that they're offering. But they get frustrated by the fact that they know that all that vehicle traffic is going to be there. So once again, that takes us back to making sure that we can divert traffic away from the cut-through traffic that's going into these areas. Secondly, I think we could educate the smaller businesses on how to get their word out there, how to market it possibly, where people that don't know they're there, this way they now know they're there and will go by and try them out. Another thing we could look at possibly doing is, like Rick had said, is taking in more feedback from them. Tell us what it is that they're frustrated with. Tell us what their concerns are with, and then take it from there, and then see if there is anything we can do as a municipality to assist them. If not, once again, we may have to revert back to educating them on certain things, because times change, and sometimes the smaller businesses don't change to come up with the modern technology. So we can educate them in certain ways which will assist them with their business, and this way they stay current, even though they're still the old style places that people like to establish themselves with. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. We'll now move on into our second hour of questioning and start with Charlene. Charlene.
The city of Brantford's success is very closely tied to that of our neighbors in the county of Brant. We share a boundary, and we've had some success sharing resources. We feel there is a lot more that can be done. What are two key and substantive areas or services that you believe could be improved upon by partnering with the County of Brant?
Mario Lacente, if you could lead us off on this one, please.
Thank you. One of the major difficulties that I see in particular is there seems to be an eroded relationship with the county, and in particular, including Six Nations, but your question is with the county. And there seems to be conflict in terms of that relationship. There's a lot of land transfer accusations that are happening, and there's a lot of partnership with the county that the city is working with. But I believe that we've got to pave that road of partnership with the county, and we have to tear down some of those walls and develop those relationships to have a better understanding of how county and city are functioning, and then to meet the needs of both parties. We can't go in wanting more than they have and vice versa. It has to be a joint type of venture between the two. And I believe that we need to first start and mending those relationships and working on a true partnership with the county. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Emmerich Deal.
People relocate for job and quality of life. Brantford has a good quality of life, which appeal to many people. The parks, schools, and easy access to outdoors and recreation are positive for our city. We need to maintain business-friendly atmosphere to create more jobs.
Thank you, Emmerich. Moving on to Ramandeep Kokar. Ramandeep.
Thank you for the question. We definitely need to rebuild the relationship with the county, not just with the county, but also with our counterparts in Six Nations as well. We need to find ways to bring both the county and the city together. One cannot ask for more and expect the other party to compromise in their stand as well. So we have to have an open-minded policy in where both county and city, their needs are met, and that together we work together as one community to bring everyone together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Tracy Bucci, please.
We always seem to be really good at disconnecting and dividing ourselves. And we do need each other, and we do need to build a good relationship with the county. I know that that was also mentioned as County Road 18 for with regards to the Brantford Southern Access Road. So, I mean, maybe if we had a better relationship with the county and we had a better relationship with Six Nations, and, you know, we all realized that we're all connected to each other, maybe we could accomplish a lot more than we are, and just get some of those basic needs out there and settled, and grow and work from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Moving to Jen Vanderstel, please.
Thanks for the question. Very good question. June 12th, 2011. I know this date specifically because that was the last remnant, the CD that was hanging down at the bottom of the stairs here, the Joint Economic Development CD that had both the city of Brantford and the county of Brant logos on it. We used to work together on joint economic development. That's what we did. I don't know why it changed, and quite frankly, I don't care. We have a illusion of a border around the city of Brantford. People just typically just don't care if they work in the city of Brantford or they work in the county of Brant. There's no huge dividing line outside of our political mind frame that they cross daily to go to work. They don't care. From my perspective, we should never have stopped working on joint economic development. We should never have spent 3 years on joint services in this room, wasting my time, wasting staff time, talking about something we had no intention of following through on. It was a frustration that I can't put words to. What I'd like to do is I'd like to revisit where we were, where we came from, joint economic development and joint services review. Seriously. Not joking around, seriously.
Thank you, Jen. Michael Sullivan, please.
Well, as my colleagues here have already said, we do need to reestablish a good working relationship with the County of Brant and with Six Nations for that matter. In order for all of us to be fruitful and for us to be prosperous, we have to have a good working solid foundation. If we want a West Brant highway access, the county's going to have to be involved in that. And we're going to have a very good relationship with them. But the relationship we have right now, it seems like it's a little bit of a bullying relationship. We need to take on more of a brotherhood. Like, bring them in as the brother, not the neighbor next door you don't like. And just start working with them and not trying to dictate to them on what they got to do for you because Brantford is growing. So it's got to be a give and take relationship, and it's got to be on a fairness. So I'm quite sure if we were to take smaller projects, working together on them, and developing an economic growth, that through that economic growth, we'd be able to broaden that into larger projects and make both the county and the city both prosperous in the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. And finally, we'll go to Rick Weaver. Rick.
Thank you for the question, Charlene. So we currently have a joint committee that's looking at various different services we can share. So I'll continue to support the good work that committee is doing. And through the boundary negotiations, part of what came out of that discussion was the desire for our groups to work together on the airport and the Cairnsville business area. And so I'll continue to support that as well. But to be very realistic, the biggest thing that we can do that would impact all of our economic success would just to become one. We're divided, and it's that division that is what's causing us our issues with the county. And I'm sure they feel the same way as far as the division. So realistically, I think that would be the biggest thing we could accomplish as a council, would be just to become one and effectively govern our region rather than just our individual cities.
Very interesting. Thank you, Rick. I think our next question will move over to David Prang again, please. David.
Thank you, Alan. To everyone, we congratulate you on putting your name forward to represent the citizens and the businesses in Brantford. It's a big responsibility, and the role of a city councilor is demanding and requires an in-depth knowledge of everything from potholes to the city's strategic plan, which we won't ask you to quote tonight. Please tell us why you would be the best person for the job.
And we're going to start with Amric Deal on this. Amric.
I am running because I live in the Awesome community that been very good to my family. I want to my part to keep my ward one great, and I see opportunity to make it ever better. I also see significant challenges coming from our ward. I am seeking a seat in council because I want to roll up my sleeves and continue to be successful. I have the knowledge and experience need to do this job, and I also hard worker. You can see this my professional experience as a director of my company Speed Logistics Inc. I hope you will vote for me that I can apply my knowledge and experience to working hard for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Amric. Move to Ramandeep.
Thank you for the question, David. I want to give back to the community that has given so much to us, and a fresh perspective and a strong voice to resolve the current issues that Ward 1 is suffering from. I'm detailed and results oriented. I'm a go-getter. And there's nothing more important to me than to stand for the voices of the community that you represent. And so their needs need to be met. Certain areas of the community this community that need to be corrected, that need to be fixed. The BSAR being one of them, which is an important part for this Ward 1 community as well. And I believe that I would be that strong voice to represent them and be their voice at City Hall. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramandeep. Moving on to Tracy Bucci.
Ward 1 deserves open, straightforward, informative servant leaders. As an active, involved 18-year organizer of the Grand River Environmental Group cleanup efforts throughout the city of Brantford, I would only have one approach, and this would be to take action. We need to stop wasting everyone's valuable time and money with endless discussions and start doing something to help every single person in the community. I am here to pay attention to your needs and concerns and brave enough to stand up for your rights. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Jan Vanderstel.
Thank you. It starts with, I love people, and politics not so much. I enjoyed my first term on council. There's nothing I would much rather do than solve problems, small and large. It's what I do on a regular basis, what I do on a daily basis. I feel driven to serve because there's a need. From my first campaign, it was clear. Ward 1's forgotten Brant, and it continues to be, to a certain extent, forgotten Brant. Ward 1 and all of its needs another sharpshooter, another person who will doggedly, determinedly go ahead and make sure that their needs are met, their safety needs are met, that their transportation needs are met. I truly believe I'm the person to help that agenda along. And I hope I get that opportunity from you.
Thanks, Jan. Moving on to Michael Sullivan.
First and foremost, I want everyone to realize that I am completely approachable. Even on my literature I've put out my home address, my home phone number. I don't want anybody to think that they can't come and talk to me. I would listen, gather information, bring it before council, come up with solutions, not Band-Aids. I'm one who sees a problem, and I don't see the problem per se. I see what needs to be done to fix it. I bring over 20 years of business professionalism to the table. Like I said earlier, 10 years as an operations manager for the health industry, 10 years working as a Canada Post liaison. I also worked in the public sector for 5 years, and I worked for Casino Niagara as an internal auditor for 3 years. So I have the knowledge and the background behind me, and it's been a successful background. Everywhere I've gone, I've been promoted. And I get promoted because I get my hands dirty. So if I'm listening to your concerns, you can guarantee I'm going to bring them before council on your behalf. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rick Weaver.
Is there an opportunity for you to repeat the question by chance?
My pleasure. We congratulate you for putting your name forward to represent the citizens and the businesses in Brantford. The role of a city councilor is demanding and requires an in-depth knowledge of everything from potholes to the city's strategic plan. Please tell us why you would be the best person for the job.
Thank you for that. There's the community vision is something that I keep with me all the time because I try to live it. And it basically says Brantford proud, vibrant, progressive, a grand community for living, learning, working, and playing. So I try to take that approach with everything I do, whether it be working on the city's budget, building a bike park in the city, working on our transportation issues, or doing what I call real-time direct democracy. So I think that I can very comfortably say that there isn't another councillor in the city that is involved more on social media than I am. So I am speaking with constituents daily, and I'm resolving their issues daily. And I think constituents demand that type of service, and they've never gotten it before. So if reelected, I'll continue to do that, and I'll continue to move their concerns forward and work towards economic stability for the city, work on our transportation concerns. I'll have to throw a bike lane or two in there because I like bikes. But I think that over this term, I've proven that I'm the type of councillor that...
Thank you, Rick Weaver. Final answer on this will go to Mario Lucente. Mario.
Thank you. First and foremost, I am not a politician. I'm an advocate for the taxpayers of this community. I'm like them. I want to be their voice, and I can be their voice. On the campaign trail, I've listened to a lot of people, and there's a common theme. One of which is actually disturbing for Ward 1, and that is Ward 1 seems to be a very divided ward. And it seems to be old West Brant, new West Brant, them and us, almost on the other side of the tracks. I believe that I can tear down that wall and knock down those silos, and we can unify the ward like it's never been, because there are people in the old West Brant that feel they're being neglected because everyone is focusing on the new, I'll call it West Brant, anything on the other side of Shellard. All the money goes there, all the roads go there, all the infrastructure cleaning up goes there, and they seem to be the forgotten side of the West Brant. So I believe I can be that catalyst to tear down those walls and build a strong relationship for Ward 1. It's loud and clear they want the BSAR, and they are tired of their taxes going up. So I believe I can be that person, and I want to be that voice for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Next question, we'll move to Charlene Nicholson. Charlene.
Councillors are often called on to make decisions that affect not only the ward they represent, but the community at large. So an example might be a business that wants to locate in your ward that is opposed by the majority of your constituents, but would provide employment and assessment that benefits the entire community. How will you balance the wishes of the constituents you represent with the needs of the community at large?
And leading us off with this question will be Ramandeep Kokar. Ramandeep.
Thank you for the question, Charlene. There's nothing more important than the voice of the constituents to be heard. There are two councillors in one ward, so between myself should I be elected to this position, with my ward mate, would come to a decision that would benefit not only the community, but also the business or the opportunity in general. And sometimes, we have to take all things for what they are worth and make the best choice and the best decision that suits the entire community in general. We are one community. There should not be a division in any way. We should speak for, we are their voices and we should speak for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Tracy Bucci.
I guess we'd have to have an open line of communication with everyone and try to come to some sort of compromise. Hopefully we can meet the needs of the Ward 1 community and the whole community as a whole. After all, we are all connected, and we do realistically need to realize that and outweigh the pros and the cons and see how it benefits everyone as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Jan Vanderstelt.
Thank you. Also a good question. Number one, public safety. You never know what kind of business wants to land in Brantford or Brant County. You'd want to make sure that public safety overall is better served by their location or their surroundings so that there are no questions about the interactive parts of their business and how it would affect the businesses surrounding them and the people surrounding them. Second, I would say, is economics, a cost-benefit analysis. How much do we have to invest over and above our strategic financial plan to attract the business and keep the business? How well will the city do financially after that business lands based on other models in other municipalities? And the third, ergonomics. Does it make sense to land the business anywhere in the city or county? How do we move people in and out successfully? Again, keeping in mind public safety. Where should they better be placed if that indeed is an option? I think it needs to be a well-rounded approach. I think there needs to be absolutely no vote trading going on between, if you vote for my project in my ward, I'll vote for yours in your ward. I think it needs to be based on the merits of the motion that comes forward in all cases.
Thank you, Jan. Michael Sullivan.
Okay, so I believe the question was with regards to what the residents are conflicting against a business wanting to move into the location. With that said, I think we need to take all the information that is presented before us, how it's going to reflect the community, how is it going to benefit the community, how are the residents of the community going to be affected by this type of business coming into the area. We need to weigh all these factors out and deem whether or not this is the right decision to make. If it deems that it's in the best interest of the community to bring the business, then yes, we bring the business in. If it's not the best interest, then we find somewhere else to put the business. It's that simple. We don't compromise. We look at the hard, cold facts and see what is it that is going to benefit from this. And we have to look at security. We have to look at child safety. A lot of these businesses bring in, but they bring in more vehicle traffic. So more vehicle traffic in a residential area is going to put more kids at risk. We have to take all of this into consideration before we even go forth and say yes or no on anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rick Weaver.
Thank you for the question, Charlene. I think one of the first things we really need to do is work with the community on change management. So we need to explain to them why this is happening, what we need to do about it, and what they can do about it. And be realistic about it. So I think that's, I've lost my train of thought. So change management, I think we need to make sure that the residents understand that a lot of times when there's something you're opposed to, it's much better to be at the table and negotiate something that you can live with than to just be butting your heads against it because you might not like anything that happens rather than just a little bit of what happens. So I've been pretty effectively at dealing with several of these issues over this term. And really change management, education to the constituent is really key to make these changes.
Thank you, Rick. Mario Lucente?
Thank you, Charlotte. I believe you need to get to the root cause issue. You need to educate your constituents to possibly the benefits of the concerns. If there's opposition, get to the root cause. Have a town hall meeting if that's what you need to do. There has to be integrity in it. It cannot be political. It has to be clear. It has to be transparent, so everybody is fully understanding the situation and promote the benefits, the possibilities of the good things that can come out of it. So I think that's important. It's more or less just being transparent about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Amric Deal?
Thank you. I will encourage the residents participant in the city decision-making process by welcoming them to city council meeting, soliciting their input to have a good understanding of the community's interests before decisions are made, and make myself available to listen to them residents' concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Amric. We'll now move to what will be our last question of the night, most likely with David Prang, please. David.
Thank you, Alan. Workforce is a critical issue for the business community nationally, provincially, and here in Brantford. Our chamber members in the manufacturing and skilled trades sector place access to a skilled workforce second on their list of concerns, with business taxes being the first. What is the role of the municipality in the development of training and post-secondary opportunities? And do you support the municipality contributing financially to further these opportunities?
Thank you, David. And we will lead off with Tracy Bucci here, please. Tracy.
So your question has to do with furthering opportunities for workshops. Is that correct?
Workforce development. Another way of phrasing it would be, maybe a short way of answering or asking the question is, the municipality in the last, say, 20 years has contributed to the development of post-secondary and training opportunities within the city of Brantford. Do you support the municipality contributing financially to further the additional development of those opportunities going forward in the future?
Oh, okay. Yes, well, absolutely, of course. I mean, we can only benefit and grow by having such opportunities available to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. We'll move to Jan Vanderstelt next.
Wow. We are swimming uphill. There's close to 400,000 job vacancies in the country of Canada right now. Those that have been vacant for 4 months or longer. You know it when you drive up and down our commercial industrial streets. There are help wanted signs everywhere. I can't find a business right now in Brantford that isn't screaming for good, competent, hardworking people who show up on time, for lack of any other attribute. So it's a given that we would support the training or facilitation of anyone in any technology, any trade, at any point in any school that we could attract to Brant County to help. First of all, we've seen a massive brain drain right across the board because of the people who would normally leave their positions anyway. What I would like to see is strategic planning on that. How do our outgoing, intelligent, seasoned veterans help train the younger ones who are coming in? How do we facilitate that? Do we do that through the municipality and the schools? Do we put funding behind it? Do we try to attract more people to Brant County and Brantford? Absolutely. Let's train as many as we can, as often as we can, as well as we can to fill these positions.
Thank you, Jan. Michael Sullivan?
I too do support the fact of supporting them into further training. However, I also think we should put a safeguard in on the city's behalf. And that is, if the person drops out of the course is not covered. This way, it keeps them to the program, and it makes them make sure that they're getting into the program for the right reasons and not the wrong reasons. You hear too many stories about people going in, getting into trade courses and whatnot, and then 3 months later dropping out. And I wouldn't be in favor of seeing the city on the hook for that. So in order to make sure that they stick it through, I would like to see that be the clause in the support. So yeah, this way we can benefit by increasing our tradespeople and increasing the workflow going through the city, and at the same token protect the taxpayers' money. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rick Weaver?
Thank you, David, for the question. So I think one of the things the city is doing right is its Smart Brantford initiative. So they're actually doing exactly what your question is. So they are putting money into redevelopment for people that have lost jobs and providing people opportunities to specialize in various jobs to increase their stature in the community. So I would continue to support the Business Resource Center. So I think that is an excellent organization. And in 2017, it actually helped create 255 startups in the city. So that type of development with our small business and medium business, because the majority of people now work for small and medium-sized businesses, the larger businesses have unfortunately left. So we need to foster our relationship with small and medium businesses and continue to help them foster their labor force. And the Smart Brantford program is actually a very good program to continue to support.
Thanks, Rick. Mario Licente.
Thank you. I absolutely support this 100%. I believe there's a lot of young people in the workforce today that there's a fair amount of apathy involved in their jobs, and they feel they can't get anywhere because they're stuck in their employment and they don't have the means and the funds maybe to push themselves further. I think it's a great opportunity. The only caveat I would have is that the focus should be that it benefits the municipality. And going forward, I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario. Amrick Deal.
Thank you. Keep reasonable and regulation and minimal tax is placed to enable creative businessmen the ability to start their business and grow them here. There is a great local talent coming to and through the university. It would be great if more of our local talent could develop business here. Thank you.
Thanks, Amrick. And lastly, Ramandeep Kokar. Ramandeep.
Thank you for the question. Yes, I would support the initiative 100%. Skilled trades are important. They need to be promoted, and we need to make our communities stronger by training younger individuals who are willing to learn in the skilled trades, so that our local communities are filling the positions that do come available and in our city, so that the opportunities that do knock on their doors, they are available, they are open, they have the skills to be able to move forward and to prosper and to grow. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone for the concise answers. Because of that, we have time for one last quick question. We're going to cut off answers at 1 minute for the last question here. So Charlene, if you would, please.
Okay, very quickly. The need for a new hospital has been clearly demonstrated. How do you see the municipality working with the province to ensure a new healthcare facility becomes a reality for our community?
And on this question, we'll start with Jan Vanderstelt. Jan.
Let's not forget the hospital we have right now. I agree with the plans and all of the background work that needs to be done on a number of different levels in order to build a new healthcare facility in the city of Brantford in a very accessible area of town for, again, our larger population as a whole. It's a conversation that must take place with all of our partners. For one, it must be inclusive. But let's not forget the needs that we have in our current hospital right now. We will need to serve the population of the city of Brantford, those who choose to go there, in a continually efficient and helpful and brilliant manner, as they try so hard to do. I see 10 years into the future. This fits in with our major master transportation plan. We need to plan together on this, and we need to plan well, and we need to plan once.
Thanks, Jan. We'll move to Michael Sullivan, and again, remind everyone we're going to keep it under a minute. Thanks.
I too, I think that we need to start those discussions. Definitely, we need to put a team together, a task team together, to actually start working on it. We do need to keep Brantford General in the back of our mind while we're doing it. However, the forecast is for the year 2040 that Brantford's population will be at 160,000 people, and that's not a reasonable number for just Brantford General. With that number in mind, we know we have to build a second facility, and I think we need to get that ball rolling as quickly as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Rick Weaver.
Thank you for the question. So our hospital right now is at 110% capacity. There's 262 beds in that hospital for a population of what's over 100,000 people right now. So I think we definitely need to work with our funding partners, provincial and federal government, to make this happen. I truly believe the current task force that we do have in place to deal with this concern of our community has the right chair in place for the job. That's Dave Levac. He's very happy to hear that he was put on that committee. And I know with Dave's history and his knowledge, and he will be the one that will help us get there. I have no illusion that it's going to take some time to get there. So the community is going to need to do some fundraising as part of bringing the hospital here.
Thanks, Rick. Over to Mario Lucente.
Thank you. We all agree this is a problem, and we need to get moving on this now. It's a massive cost, $1 billion plus. Going to take 10 to 20 years possibly. According to our Ontario Growth Plan, as already stated, that the population is going to reach 161,000 by 2041. That's only 23 years away. So if we look at the expansion of the population versus no hospital, it's going to just compound to the issue and get even worse as time goes on. So thank you.
Thank you, Mario. We'll move to Amrit Deal.
Thank you. I agree with for the new hospital. We need new hospital in Brantford because our community growing every day by day, and this hospital is overcrowded. So we need the new hospital very soon, and we also need to increase the staff in old hospital. Thank you.
Thanks, Amrit. Ramandeep Kokar. Ramandeep.
Thank you for the question. This is definitely a large need for the city. The needs are great, and the medical services need to be provided in a timely manner. We have a large community which continues to grow as each day goes by. We need to work both with the provincial and the federal governments to make sure that the needs of Brantford are met. And when it comes to the current hospital as well, we do need, even if it means we need to start small and further grow, then that is something that we have to look at and something that has to be taken care of right away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Tracy Bucci.
Yes, we definitely need a hospital. We need to work together and sit down and be serious about this and work with the federal and provincial government. It's reassuring to know that Dave Levac is involved. And if anybody can help us, I'm sure that he can. So yes, I definitely do agree, and we should act immediately. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. So that's all the time we have for questions tonight. We're now going to move into closing statements. Again, I'll remind everybody that we're going to move in reverse order from the opening statements, starting with Michael Sullivan and finishing with Rick Weaver. And I'd ask everybody to keep their comments to a minute. Again, you'll be reminded of your time. So, Michael, if you would, please.
I want to represent you. I want to take in the voice of the community, the voice of the constituents, and represent them before council. I want the needs of the ward to come first, not anything else. Is development going to happen? Absolutely. But at the same token, I feel that we need to prepare Brantford for future growth while preserving its heritage and its community integrity. We do need a change, but it needs to be a healthy one. We can't just do something for the sake of doing it, and we need to make sure that your tax dollars are working for you and not against you. We don't want to be spending money on things that don't need to be spent. So when October 22nd rolls around, I hope you see that my heart is for Brantford and that you vote for me for council for Ward 1. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michael. We'll now move to Jan Vanderstelt.
Thank you. It's on my literature, but I mean it honestly, and I mean to say it out loud. I want to thank you for your support in Ward 1 in 2010, and again for your support in 2014 when I ran for mayor. I appreciate that we have an ongoing relationship. I thank you for the opportunity to serve. I look forward to doing it again, but I honestly look forward to doing it better with I would say, I don't want to say it, but I need to, with a change in overall leadership. It's necessary for Brantford that we figure out how to use council to properly negotiate rather than dictate. And I'm there for that purpose.
Thank you very much, Jan. We'll next move to Tracy Bucci. Tracy?
I'm your servant leader. I'm all about transparency, accountability, and integrity, and inspiring action and making a difference. I'm a hands-on, go-getter type of person, and I will continue to be that way. A better today means a better tomorrow for our children and their children. In order to flourish, we need to work from the ground up. The needs of the people should always come first. We're all in this together. I think it really starts with just the basic needs. You could look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. When we have great places like the Brantford Welcome and Resource Center, and we deny funding for something that's well established and really helpful in this community, it doesn't say a lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Next, if we could get the closing statement from Ramandeep Kokar, please. Ramandeep.
Thank you. In closing, I would like to thank my fellow candidates, the moderators, and Rogers Television for providing us with this opportunity today to share our platforms and to connect with the voters. I strongly believe in a democratic society where each voice is heard. We should all benefit from lower taxes, better services, and an infrastructure program that meets our needs. The BSAR continues to be an unaddressed concern and is long overdue. The current designs and plans are more than 20 years old and will not meet the needs of this growing community today. It will be my #1 priority to get this link project moving and in place during my first term as your new councillor. The new sports complex is an important project for this community. It brings the community together in diverse ways. You need a fresh perspective and a strong voice to resolve the current issues. I am detailed and results-oriented. I bring my dedication and commitment to these time-pressing matters. On October 22nd, vote Ramandeep Kokar as your voice at City Hall. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramandeep. Next, we'll move to Emerick Thiel. Emerick.
Thank you. I want to thank the Chambers of Commerce and voters for hosting this event. If there is anything I want you to take away from this debate, it's this: as your future council person, I am committed to listen to all of you, not just the people who are outspoken. I will assess both sides of every issue and draw my own conclusion. I have a proven ability to collaborate with our city staff to determine a common ground, develop solutions, and analyze information objective, which will be asset to city council as we face crucial decision. We need someone who understands Brantford tradition and value while also bring to table a fresh perspective. Thank you.
Thank you, Emerick. Next, move to Mario Lasante. Mario.
First of all, I'd like to thank the moderators and my fellow candidates and Rogers for this opportunity. It's been a great experience. Brantford Southern Access Route must be complete. It's been long overdue, and there should be no more delays. Taxes must be controlled through smart budget decisions without diminishing services. My priority is to stop frivolous spending at the City Hall through smart, efficient City Council decisions. Wasted spending eventually affects citizens through tax increases. Brantford Council must never lose sight that there are real tax-paying people with real families trying to financially survive in our city today, within our community. Their interest must be first. My vision is that voice for those families, October 22nd. Help me to help your family. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mario. And lastly, we'll have Rick Weaver, please. Rick.
Thank you. So let's talk about relationships. So I worked very, very hard, even before I was elected to council, on building relationships with the people that I was running against. I've done the same thing this year. I've reached out to every member of the Ward 1 candidacy that's here before you today to try to meet with them, to have a conversation, to start building that relationship. I've built great relationships with all of my council colleagues, with city staff, and with many members of the community. And that relationship building, I feel, is what's made me so successful as your Ward 1 candidate, as your Ward 1 councillor for the last term. Everything I've tried to do at City Hall, I've accomplished. Everything. So whether it be building a bike park for the kids in our community or fixing our transit issues, I've been very successful because of those relationships. So please vote for me again on October 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. I'd like to take this moment just to thank all the candidates again. And again, thank you for your commitment to our community and letting your name stand for this election. We've talked about a number of topics local to Ward 1, including the BSAR, sports complex, and on a larger city scale, such as infrastructure and property taxes. We've even hit on a topic that hits near and dear to my heart, amalgamation. I'm sure that tonight's discussion will greatly assist the residents of Brantford when they go to the polls on October 22nd. I'd also like to thank Rogers for partnering with the Chamber of Commerce to provide this opportunity for the residents of our community and our businesses to stay apprised of our candidates. I'd like to remind everybody that we do have a number of debates for the other wards and the mayoral candidates coming up, and these debates will be available on the Rogers YouTube channel moving forward. So if anybody has missed tonight's broadcast, please point them towards the YouTube channel and they can find it there. Our next debate scheduled will be September the 17th, where our Ward 2 candidates in Brantford will share their thoughts on similar topics to what we discussed tonight. I want to thank everybody at home for joining us tonight, and those of you who have tuned in through the YouTube channel later. Please exercise your right to vote on October 22nd and do what's right for our community. Thank you.
Movie or the cartoon series that's not actually from the game. Did you ever really think that this story was never explained to you in any way? The only story that you're given in the manual is that the Mushroom Kingdom has been invaded by a tribe of turtles called the Koopa. The Koopa Turtle King have used some kind of black magic to turn everybody into weird objects like stones, bricks, and field horsehair plants. And for whatever reason, Princess Toadstool is the only one that can turn everybody back. But that really doesn't tell you why Mario is there and why he even cares about any of this stuff happening. And because of that, the fourth negative, Super Mario Bros. Has a bad story. Super Mario Bros. Is a great game. There's very little wrong with it. And even though it's got these four negatives, well, I bet you didn't even think about them till I just brought them up. Super Mario Bros. For the NES. 4 negatives, but a whole hell of a lot of positives.
Call the Rogers TV viewer response line, email us, or connect with us on social media.
Local entrepreneurs share their stories of success and challenges in small business.
Or even if I need more of a virtual kind of presence.
The Small Business Show on Rogers TV.
It was John's graduation. We were so proud. We all got together for a picnic. That's when we heard coming from the radio. So we stopped and we listened. It helped us get to safety. That's why when I think of John, because now he has a real future to look forward to.
This is Rogers TV.